Hello and welcome to the IoT podcast. My name is Beth Law and I'm the production manager of the podcast. You might be wondering why I'm here and not Tom. Well, today's episode is a pretty special one. We're celebrating Girls in ICT Day, coming this Thursday, April 22nd, which is going to be the day that we are uploading this episode. And my guest today is Nicole Thorpe from Cultinova. So, Nicole, welcome.
Hi Beth. Thank you for having me.
No
It's
problem.
a special day.
How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm very well. How are you?
Good. Yeah, I'm good. Good. A little bit nervous to be stepping into Tom's shoes, but I think I'll be okay,
As long as
hopefully.
it's not contagious, that's fine.
So Nicole, I did a little bit of research into what you do, but tell me what you do with Cultinova and where you kind of stand in the community.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Well, I'm co-founder and director of Cultinova, which is in essence an IoT company, so Internet of Things technology provider. That's our core business. And we've specialized in monitoring, control, and data technologies, digital solutions for controlled environment agriculture. So now I've thrown out lots of lots of technical terms already, which I probably need to explain a little bit. So controlled environment agriculture is basically what it says on the tin. So we produce food indoors, so that can be in greenhouses or in vertical farms, so completely closed systems without any daylight. And what we do at Cultinova is we basically provide the sensors and the data gathering technologies and the data analysis and management technologies to understand the interaction between the plants and the environment that they're growing in, to improve and optimize the environment such that we can kind of mimic nature indoors and give the plant exactly what it needs at any given point in the growth cycle. But we also look towards optimizing processes in the actual growing operations. So not just the environment, but we also looking to use data to optimize processes in indoor growing to make it more sustainable, more energy efficient, and better for the environment to produce healthier food for all of us.
Ah, okay. See, that's not too hard to understand. I was worried that it would be quite technical, and obviously Tom is usually the one that he knows his stuff. I just sit there and edit it, but but no, that's actually quite easy to understand. So when I was looking into the company, there was a phrase that came up, urban agriculture, which kind of
Yeah.
struck me a little bit because I've never heard of urban agriculture. You don't sort of think of those two words together because you think agriculture is all fields and it's not really an urban thing. So what actually is it and what does it do? How does it create this sustainable community?
That's a very good question, a very big question. Actually, urban agriculture is actually when you think back of why our cities were created in the first place. We kind of settled around where we had our resources, where we could grow food and where we could trade. And as cities have grown, we've kind of moved our food production sort of to the urban realm and further and further away from where we live, which has obviously resulted in longer transports and longer supply chains. And so urban agriculture is, again, what it says on the tin. It's producing food in an urban setting or even peri-urban setting. And it takes all sorts of shapes and sizes. So when I think of urban agriculture, I envisage rooftop greenhouses, for example. I think of community gardens. I think of community supported agriculture, whereby citizens and communities take on ownership of plots of land. But at the same time, as cities will grow, and we all know that cities grow significantly, and right now I think it's already 50% of the global population already reside in cities, and
Wow.
it's going to be up to, I think, 70% by was it 2030?
Oh
It's going
wow,
to
that's
be,
growing
don't
fast.
don't hold me on these figures, but it's it's a significant amount of people who are going to live in metropolitan areas. So we need to find a way of feeding these cities and feeding and doing so in a sustainable way. And with all the pressure towards net zero and trying to mitigate climate change, we've got to find a way of producing more locally. And I think we all noticed it last year in March, when we went to the supermarket and during lockdown #1, and we realized that there were plenty of empty supermarket shelves, and all of a sudden things weren't, it kind of almost drummed it home to all of us that, our supply chains are quite complex, and that we're not, we need to make sure that we find a way of producing more locally. And I think that, combined with changing consumer demands towards more sustainably grown and also locally grown food, shortening supply chains to make sure that the carbon footprint is reduced, are all things that speak for urban agriculture. So producing food, again, back to where we used to, back in the cities. So this is what I do, this is where I come from, and I've always worked on the intersection between urban agriculture and urban greening. I'm quite passionate about cities and the challenges that they face in the future in the light of climate change, and I'm personally driven to make a contribution towards making cities a better place and producing healthy and nutritious food for us, the communities, and our children. I think is a good thing, and that's what I get up for in the morning.
Yeah. And hopefully with the pandemic and everything, people have kind of, like you said, woken up to the fact that there is a huge need for this in cities everywhere. I mean, I know that my family, my mum, she started growing vegetables at home because she was like, I can't get it anywhere. So she started growing it in our garden. So I think people are starting to wake up to it, which is great.
Definitely. And it's actually amazing. There's quite a lot of research into the social effects of urban gardening as well. As you mentioned, your mum's now taken an interest in growing her own food, and I'm sure that wasn't just because she couldn't buy the food in the supermarket. It was something to do, and if you share that then with other people, it kind of gives you a sense of well-being, and it's actually proven to have mental health benefits as well, which I think during lockdown we could all do with a bit of mental stimulation as well. So it's got multiple benefits, and it's a really exciting area. Obviously, it takes different varying degrees of technology. So where my company is basically at home is in either semi-controlled or totally controlled environments, which have a commercial application. So it's less so the community supported agriculture side of things, but more the sort of like intensive farming indoors, let's say. So moving almost like commercial production indoors, to make sure that the food is safe, healthy, and we don't have to rely on seasons, which is something that obviously by moving production indoors we become independent of weather, especially if it's in a completely enclosed environment. But I'm not gonna pretend there are not any challenges left in controlled environment agriculture. So it's not the be all and end all, and this is where IoT has got huge potential in my mind.
So how can we use IoT to kind of build on this?
Again, good question. Well, I guess we've recognized that. Well, firstly, I think there's a need to mimic nature indoors. So and you can't manage what you don't measure. So you need to put monitoring and data gathering things in place in order to be able to control the environment as well. So you need almost like a baseline data, and you need to know what the plant needs. So you also need clever people who think like a plant and who know what the plant needs at any given point. So that in itself is a very complex issue. And the technology to me is just there to support that clever knowledge and to inform the decisions towards better yields, better resource efficiency, less usage of fertilizer, for example, or water. In an indoor environment, you can also make do without completely without pesticide use. That's another really attractive thing. But obviously, you need to measure everything, and IoT does exactly that. It it connects different measurement points, it connects different sensors, it connects machines, but for us it also connects people to machines as well. So that to us is also important, to recognize that there might be some external data sources. It doesn't always have to come from a machine, so it doesn't have to be machine to machine. It can be human to machine, and this complex web of interactions. And if you also, there are multiple benefits towards gathering the data, because not only do you gain an insight into the complex interactions between plant and environment, you can, for example, you can gauge and learn of the impacts that different lighting strategies, for example, have. Different wavelengths that you deliver to the plants can have different effects on the plant growth, even on the can even affect the secondary metabolites. So things like vitamins or taste, or certain contents that you would like to stimulate during the growth process. And by measuring all of these things, recording it, and revisiting the data and analyzing the data, you obviously gain an insight. You learn from past data, and you can begin to predict the future. So this is really, really exciting stuff, and it also helps with the optimization on a holistic scale as well. Not just as I mentioned earlier, not just the growth process, but also looking at the business side of things. It's got to make financial sense as well. So it's gathering the data. I guess the challenge will be to make the data digestible and not kind of end up in this big data lake that you then drown in. So this is something that is important, and should be something that we need to bear in mind in the future.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I know that if I were to look at all that data, I wouldn't have a clue what I was looking at. Not at all. So obviously today is Girls in ICT Day. Yeah. So happy Girls in ICT Day. Yeah. So we're celebrating this, of course, because this is quite a male-dominated industry. Tech in general, ICT, everything, it's kind of a little bit male-dominated. But we as women, obviously, we have stories to tell too. So I wanted to kind of ask, have you noticed a difference in the treatment of girls and women in the industry, whether that be positive or negative?
I'd say yes, I have seen a difference, and luckily it's positive.
Oh, good.
I see more I see more and more girls interested in it, and I think this I'm obviously not of the generation that grew up with the internet and with sort of the Internet of Things technology. But my kids have, and I think the attitude towards technology is a different one nowadays. Across gender anyway. So I think there is a positive move. Having said that, though, I recently went through my LinkedIn contacts in the industry or industries. So I don't just come from an ICT, so like tech industry, but also come even like the smaller niche, which is the ag tech industry. And it's quite shocking. I think less than 10% of my contacts were actually female. So wow. That led me to actually set up my own, together with a friend of mine, to set up a small informal get together of women in the industry, just to kind of sit down with a glass of something, sort of a happy hour kind of thing, and just chat and give opportunity to kind of be amongst women and just have a chat. So yeah, I think that is tremendously important to have peer support. So women supporting women. And it's something that's very dear to me, and break down these barriers and silo thinking of, men should be doing this and girls should be doing that. I think that's so antiquated, and it's not going to be helpful for the future. But I think this is where COVID has made another area where COVID has had a massive impact is remote working. So I think employers have woken up to the fact that they can actually have quite productive workforce, even if they're sat at home and working from home, which also obviously has challenges but benefits for combining the work-life balance, which, let's face it, being a woman, it's important for men as well, but it tends to be, especially if you have small children, tends to be, tends to require heavy, let's say, involvement by the mother. And if she can then combine work and life through remote working, then so the technology is there. So I think it's going to improve, but we need to start early. I think the earlier we can start getting girls interested in IT and making sure that they realize it's not just all about coding. I couldn't code personally to save my life.
Me neither.
I have people who do that for me. So I didn't even study engineering, but I work for I set up or co-founded an IT company. So you don't have to come from the industry, but you don't be shy if you want to get into it. Just because it might not be the traditional role. This is something that we need to break down. Let's break down these silos and antiquated thinking.
Yeah, definitely. So this group that I noticed on your LinkedIn that you were part of a group called Women in Food and Agriculture Community. Is that the group that you met up with? Or is that
no,
separate?
it's actually something that I set up recently, like 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
No, we had our first meetup, which was only basically close friends, because it was kind of like tipping toes in water, and we just kind of wanted to know, is there a need out there? Do people want to do it? And round 2 now, we call ourselves Spark Ladies Hour, because we want to spark ideas, we want to spark new ways of thinking, and we're completely brand new, so there is no digital trace of our. But we just recognize that it's important to kind of listen to women, give them a stage, and like as you said, women have got stories to tell as well, and they tend to be very interesting. So we're running actually on today, this evening on Thursday, we're running the our first session Pecha Kucha style. So where we're asking people to just give a short presentation, just showing pictures, which will be interesting. So that just get like in sort of not the standard sort of presentation and talk format, but just very quick fire. Tell us your story in a few seconds and a few minutes, and
that
don't
sounds
use any
hard.
text. So it's going to be mega hard, and
yeah.
I'm dreading it because I came up with the idea and I'm going to have to go first. But unfortunately, it's not webcast because we want to keep it quite as sort of informal, but just a chat situation. But who knows? This may grow. I know there are plenty of initiatives out there trying to connect the industry. So if any of you listeners are girls in IT or interested in getting into IT, please feel free to reach out and see if we can get you on board.
Yeah, that would be great.
Including yourself, of course, Beth, because we're trying to have also adopt this not linear networking approach where we always remain in our fish in the same pond. We'd like to have cross networks as well, so try and learn from other industries, try and learn from one another. And
that sounds great.
Have like a critical friend sometimes. I think that is, especially if you're young and you have a startup idea, to me it would have been invaluable to have a group of, well, ideally women, because I probably would have been less shy. but a group of people there who I could pitch to, and they give me genuine feedback, especially if they come from the industry. And I think it's a good idea, and that's probably because I'm biased, because it came from myself and my friend. But it's a trial, so we'll see how it pans out and see whether it's how well received it is. And I
think it's a great idea too. I really do. I think that's fantastic. So the Women in Food and Agriculture Community Group, what's that kind of about?
To be honest with you, I didn't set it up, so I don't know. I can only assume and make assumptions on what the background was, which I think was also the recognition that there is a gender gap in the agricultural sector still. That is still very male dominated. And don't get me wrong, I like men, so we're not trying to say that women are better, but it's joking apart, we need to give girls and women a stage, and also, a voice. And this is something that I find very important. And I think I came to realize this when I was researching for a grant application, because I was trying to explore how we could use our technology, so IoT, in helping young female farmers in Africa, to improve their farming, so improve their productivity, but also use it for training. And this is where I realized the still very pervasive gender gap in African agriculture, and how this is really a massively important sector for the continent, and yet it's still so male dominated. And my thinking was that by empowering these young women to firstly make a living, giving them also the entrepreneurial training that they require, we kind of I managed to make a contribution towards lifting some of them out of poverty, because they have a means of income, and women tend to, there are studies on this, so this isn't my assumption, women tend to spend some of their money on, or a large proportion of money on nutrition, making sure that their kids get a healthy diet. So it also has a knock-on effect as well. So education and outreach activity has always been important to me. So this is probably why I've set up this network. And the women in agriculture thing, I think, is also stems from that recognition that there is still a need to tell women that this isn't, this might be an attractive sector. And this is where controlled environment agriculture, I think, can have another pull factor for young people in general, because it can be quite high tech, or it tends to be very high tech, and it has all of these converging sectors, and requires so many different skills that I think it's a really interesting career opportunity that people should explore. But that means they need to be exposed to it. So that's why I think what you do with these podcasts is a brilliant opportunity, because it gives people from all walks of life the opportunity to listen to a wide variety of IoT professionals, and just kind of understand where all the different applications are.
Definitely. Thank you so much for saying that. That's so sweet.
You're welcome.
So I actually found I can never say this word, statistic. There you go. I found a statistic online. Not sure just how accurate it is, but
Okay.
so 65% of children entering primary school today will have jobs that don't yet exist. It kind of seems that as tech evolves, so do the roles that will become available to up-and-coming generations. So in that case, how do you think you could make IT attractive to younger people, specifically girls, and get more young girls involved in it?
I think by breaking down the fear factor, maybe that's one thing. And also, like I said about the coding, IT isn't just about coding. You can have many different angles. Encompasses all sorts of STEM related factors. In terms of what would I do, I would give them hands-on experience. I'd make sure that they, I would say, go out there and try and get a broad overview of what's out there. And I would encourage companies to offer open days and invite young girls and boys. I don't just want to be too exclusive, but we're talking about girls here today. So invite them just to come in, to ask questions, just be approachable. And this is what I think is information, and feeding their imagination as well. Because if that statistic is true, 65%, that's a significant proportion.
I know.
So,
it's huge.
It's huge. But then it also shows that there's huge potential for new ideas, new innovation, new business models, new technologies. So exciting times, definitely. And we definitely need some all the clever brains that we can get, male or female, whatever age. So this is what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you were saying earlier, obviously, I think it's probably from maybe my generation and below that we've kind of started growing up with technology and advancing so quickly. So, for example, my nephew, he's 16. I'm 24. So the difference just between our generations is crazy in what I've grown up with and what he's grown up with. So I think that's probably helping, shift more young people into technology.
I think so, definitely. But I think I'm a firm believer in exposing people to what's out there, just kind of like as I said, in order to feed your imagination, you need inspiration, and the more inspiration you can get, the better. So again, openness, dialogue, we need to start talking amongst each other, women amongst women, women amongst men, young, old, different generations. That's hugely important, and this is why I think networks are hugely powerful, really. So nowadays it's so easy to just find somebody on LinkedIn, reach out to them, and if you've got a good story to tell, most people tend to be open to speaking to you. So don't be shy, just reach out and try. The worst that can happen is that somebody ignores you, but you've tried. So
yeah, exactly. So okay, well, that's perfect. So Nicole, where can our listeners find you on social media?
You can find me mainly on LinkedIn. That's my main channel. We also have the company also has a LinkedIn channel, but most of it tends to be done through my hat. And yeah, we're also on Instagram, but that's early days. So the main channel is LinkedIn. But yeah, please feel free to just reach out with any comments, questions, feedback, whatever. I'm always happy to connect people, and yeah.
Fantastic, and thank you so much for joining us today, Nicole.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been great.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you. Anytime.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to have you back sometime. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And you can find us on LinkedIn and Twitter as the IoT Podcast. Make sure you drop by, give us a follow, and stay up to date with the latest conversations in IoT.